Hi, my name's Jaylin. I'm back again today with this book called The Pleasure of Learning by Karl Witte. He was a German in 1800s. He died at 83 years old and he was teaching law in the university. And he was one of the geniuses in the history, and he got a very special education by his father called Karl Witte. His father was a pastor. He was born in 1767 and he died at 1845. So while he was a pastor, he had a child, Junior Karl Witte, Johann Witte, and he was actually very slow at learning when he was young, and so he had a challenge in his intellectual ability. So his father Karl Witte decided that he's going to educate him himself. So he did homeschooling of his child, and he taught a very special way, taught in a very special way, and he became a genius. So when he was 9 years old, he was already speaking 6 different languages, and it included the Latin. And I don't know, I never learned Latin and I was growing up in Korea. But I know a lot of people in North America, in Europe, they start with learning Latin. And the Latin language, from what I hear from this book and from other people, they usually learn how to read and write, but no one can really speak fluently. But Karl Witte Jr., he was able to speak Latin, and in including Greek and including other languages. He was very fluent when he was young. So he entered the university at 9 years old, and until he died at 83 years old, he was teaching law in universities. And in between, after he got his second PhD in law, he, from the recommendation by the king, at the time there was a kingdom, so the king recommended him to go study in Italy. So he ended up studying there, and then after he became a law professor. Today what I'm going to do is to share the 8 tips in how to educate a child by Karl Witte, his father. So the first is create an environment for learning. It's important to have an independent space for a child for his learning. So when you create the room, it's a small, but it has a lot of books and carefully chosen books that his father thought he might be interested in, and it's good for him. So there was a good selection of books, a lot of books in different topics. And then he didn't buy him any expensive stationeries. So I hear the small space with the actual lower ceiling makes you concentrate better. So if you want to cultivate, or if you want to have some inspiration or creativity, you go to a place that has a high ceiling and your mind expands. But if you want to have a deep concentration of something, then it's actually better if you go to a place that is a lower ceiling and it's kind of small. So it helps you to study better. So I think in that way, his father, Karl Witte, created that place that is quiet, and he filled with the books that are very valuable. So from those books, the child, he really felt a lot of the touching moments when he was reading. And at the same time, his father knew that it's not only the books that you can learn from, so it is as important to learn from the nature. So he walked with his child in the nature every day together, and he would tell stories. And whenever the Junior Karl Witte got interested in something in the nature, like plants or some fruits or any animals, and he would tell a story about that, and he got so excited. And when he comes back home and he wants to read about it, so he just really cultivated the environment and provide the right informations whenever he needed. So that was first one. And the second one is the importance of having a break. So the breaks are very important because when a child is learning something, studying, they cannot have too much ability to concentrate very long time. And it's very exhausting for that little person, right? So he knew that. So he never allowed him to study for many, many hours at a time. And he always put little like 20-minute break, or you study that you'd have the child study for 20 minutes and he would have him take a break. So there was this kind of the game, and he would let him go play and run around and then come back, so that the child never felt that he's forced to stay one place and just pushing him through the study materials. Like, he never created that kind of environment. So no stress. Do not allow accumulating stress while you're studying, but let it out by moving your body or taking a little break and things like that. And the reason why he did that is because having that spark of interest and fun component is very important to keep the interest going for a longer term. So he knew that learning is about marathon, it's not about sprint. So that's why he did that. So number 3 is make it fun. You want to spark the interest in a child in a way that they want to figure things out. So every child has this innate desire to be able to figure something out themselves. They want to do it themselves. They want to try it out. Achieving something, it's not as important in terms of living a satisfying life. He realized that happiness and day-to-day joy, and it's more important. So that's why he was making sure that his child is taking learning as a fun activity. It's a joyful. It gives him a happiness rather than something that you have to push through and you have to put a lot of pressure to create stress in learning, right? So he always made sure that his child is in a good mood and it's excited about learning, and so he doesn't get stressed. So number 4, it's utilizing the study time more efficiently. So as I mentioned earlier, he would always put these breaks in between, but also at the same time, in each day, he wouldn't allow him to study more than 2-3 hours. Even if he finds it super interesting, I want to finish this book, I want to read for 6 hours, but he would stop him. No, it's not healthy. Again, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, right? So he would also tell him that it's very important to learn something from the day-to-day activities, not just from books, but by having interactions and by experiencing something in the real life. He would pick up something more intuitively by seeing something and by having conversation with his parents, or just experiencing, like traveling, things like that. So he was always having his child don't overstudy, and keep your energy into something that is also important as much as studying from books. So number 5, it's about play. Again, he comes back with the importance of doing something other than just studying, because he feels that when a child becomes very smart, it is not because that the child is very special. Maybe there are cases that the child is very special, but his approach is that if anyone is taught in a right way, with the consistency and the support, then the child can become a genius. So the reason why he became genius is because he was lucky to meet his father, and who provided this perfect environment for learning, and therefore he got to accumulate knowledge much more than other children at that age. So that is a reason why he became smart, not because he was different or much better than the other. So he was very careful, very careful often when someone is trying to say very nice things like, oh, you're very gifted, you're very genius, you're smart. Then he would tell him, please don't say these things to my child when he's in front of us. When he's not listening, it's okay to tell me, but don't tell him directly, because he didn't want him to feel that he's special, he's better than others, and he kind of becomes a cold person who is kind of looking down always in other people, and feel the sense of kind of supremacy. Actually, the child, the Karl Jr. Karl Witte explains in this book that at some point he felt that he was very special, he was different than others, so he didn't, he kind of became cocky. What it did to him is very interesting, like internally, emotionally, he became very pressured. He felt very burdened about studying. So I need to prove myself that I am indeed the smart person. I am indeed the genius. So he was just pushing himself very too hard to just read and study, and he would just spend hours, and he just accumulated stress. So his father noticed that, and he asked him, so how many hours have you been reading this? And how many hours, he said, and how many pages did you read? And he said, I read this many pages. So what do you remember? So tell me about this and that about what you read. And he couldn't remember anything. And he realized that that's not the right way to learn. So he told him, the father told the child, okay, right now, stop it and go out. Go out and play as much as you want, and run around as much as you want, and come back when you're done. So he came back, and he didn't come back to study right away, but he spent time to talk to his mom and do other things. And then he came back and he opened the book again, and he read, and he just realized that how much it's easier, so much easier to remember things that he read. So as soon as he dropped the feeling that he's special, the pressure got released, so mental condition became much more stable, and he was able to come back to the state of, okay, I learned because I'm interested about this topic, not because I want to show off myself to somebody that I'm better than them or something like that, right? So that was that. And number 6, the effect of repetition. So it's not about actually just try to do flashcards, right? It's different it's not forced memorization in any way. Even if it's a very difficult book, and even if it's something that you really want to memorize, don't start by reading one letter by letter and one word by word and trying to memorize and understand everything from the beginning. He says, okay, well, just skim through it, do a speed reading of just to get the zest of what it is about. You might not understand everything, likely you don't, but just go through it quickly, and then you come back and do it again. Then this time you will notice that you will actually understand much better than the first time. And once you're done, you go back and now try to read more slowly, in more details, and then you will notice it became much easier. So that's what he meant by repetition. It's never forced memorization of what you're learning, but just purely exposing yourself multiple times in a more natural way, driven by your interest. That's going to help you learn better and remember things better. So number 7, it's about the rhythm. I think he just keeps repeating this pattern of it's like a music. You need to have a rhythm when you're studying. So when you study, you take a break and study and play outside and study and go to sleep. This kind of rhythm is important. That's what she was saying. What it does is that it relaxes your brain and lets your body to relax as well. And you can go have a drink of water. You can just move your body, then you come back and it helps you to study better. It makes you more alert and it allows you to connect the different neurons better, and that's really helpful. And number 8, it's similar to taking a break, but also this one is about actually changing the content of learning. So you might be learning this subject, but then you don't linger on this subject for like entire day or for many hours, but instead you do, let's say, math, and then you change it to literature, and then you change it to a music, and then you change back to this mathematics or things like that. So when you encounter a very difficult question, we have a tendency to just linger on that, and because it's really hard, I need to finish this first before I move on, and you get stuck entire day and you don't feel good and you get stressed. So he suggested that, you know what, actually the best way to solve a difficult problem is not to just get stuck on this for many hours, but switching to something else, like do something else and come back, and you will realize that it became all of a sudden so much easier, and you'll be able to answer that question. So I actually have a personal experience about this, because I do freelancing, and it's much better, in my experience, than the full-time regular employment job for one company. That's because I have multiple projects, multiple contracts. I only do part-time for like short-term period, like 3 months or something like that, a few months at a time, and I focus on just 2 to 3 days per project. When I was a regular employee, and they will know that there are times that you do know yourself very well that you're not being productive at all at that time. You're just not in the mood of doing the work or absorbing anything that you're reading. You're just reading, but it just comes and goes right away. So, but because you are supposed to be there from 9 to 5 or something like that you are kind of forced to stay there, or your boss is watching you or something like that. So you are there, but you're not making any progress. So that itself is really stressful. Like, it's almost feel like not just about me not being productive and not looking good for other people if I leave now, but also it's about like self-evaluation. I feel like, maybe I'm not so too good and I'm just stupid, or things like that. All these negative feelings gets accumulated when you are in this kind of situation. But when I do freelancing, I work only the time that when I feel I'm the most efficient. So I would work on something, but then I know that my state of my mind is not optimized for that learning. I stop, and then I move on to another project where I take a break and I go to bed, or I come back, or I switch the working environment. I would be at the co-working space, and then you know what, I know that I'm not gonna be very productive at this moment. I'm just gonna go home, take a break, and then I will start working there again. So I could do that in multiple different ways, and I find this is so much better than having a like full-time obligated 9 to 5 type of work. So I feel it's been working really well for me, and I think that that's what the Karl Witte also realized, and that's what he was using, the technique or approach he was using for his child to make his child a genius. So today's lesson, that is it. Next time, maybe I will talk more about this book, or I can talk more about the Karl Witte's book, like his father's book itself. Yeah, let me think about it. So yeah, today that was it, and hope you have a great weekend and or weekday, whichever day you are. And for me, it's nighttime, so I'm gonna go to bed. It's like, what time is it? Like 10 p.m. So I have to go and eat and go to bed. And for you, you do whatever that pleases you. Hopefully something more productive in learning or relaxing yourself to be prepared for your next learning adventure. Okay, so I'll be back again with more learning tips or something very useful for you, and I'll see you again. Bye.